Before I get started in this little talk on art, I just want to remind you this is the one presentation that you probably will want to be in front of a computer screen for. There's an art gallery that has the fine art images that I'm going to be referencing throughout this particular talk, and it will just be a lot more enjoyable to you if you're able to look at what I'm referring to. The learning objective for art studies is captured in this little experience of one of my storytelling friends. The first time I saw Raphael's Disputa, which decorates one of the walls in one of the rooms of the Vatican in Rome, I had set out with my guidebook, intending to study all the paintings by Raphael that decorate these rooms. I entered the first room and I suppose looked around at the other walls, seeing 3 other paintings, but all I recalled during this visit was the Disputa. I sat down before it and remained seated. I do not know how long, but the morning slipped away. What I thought about as I looked at the picture, I cannot tell you. My impression is that I did not think at all. I only felt. My spirit was lifted up and purified and strengthened with happiness. Returning to my hotel, I read about the picture in my guidebook. It appeared that one of the figures represented Dante. I had not noticed it. And as I read on, I noticed other things that I had missed, that indeed the whole subject, as far as it could be put into words, had escaped me. I had no knowledge what the painting was about, only I had felt its beauty. Since then, I have studied more about the picture and discovered some of the means Raphael employed to arouse this depth of feeling, and the knowledge has helped me to find beauty in other things. Now, compare that experience with the learning objectives I pulled off the Virginia State Standards list. These standards, by the way, begin in the 1st grade. Demonstrate understanding of the elements of art: color, form, line, shape, space, texture, value, balance, contrast, emphasis, movement, pattern, proportion, rhythm, unity, and variety. Identify, analyze, and apply criteria. Students will examine works of art and make informed judgments about them based on established visual art criteria. Provide analytical skills to evaluate information that is conveyed through images and symbols. Where's the part about opening children's eyes to see the beauty in all the world? Where's the lesson that teaches that true art communicates with the deeps of our souls, that man becomes the thing he gazes upon, as Hawthorne taught in The Great Stone Face, that images are long-lasting, so be careful what images you impress on the heart? I copied these words from my readings. The heart and soul of the masterpiece, the sheer beauty of it, are considered least of all, and students end up heartily hating something they might have enjoyed and loved. It is better to create a capacity to enjoy art than to have a technical knowledge of its pieces. On the back of our book on paintings, I included the quote, "When we see ordinary things, we see only with our eyes, but when we see works of art, we see with our hearts." The heart feels, it doesn't analyze, and in the end, it's the heart that shapes who we are. Learning the rules of art before we have felt it is like being shown the secrets behind the magic tricks before we've felt the magic. Childhood is for feeling the magic of art. Children love looking at pictures, and it's the second language we can use to communicate to the heart of a child before he understands words. And it's a powerful and lasting language. We say in one ear and out the other, but we don't say in one eye and out the other. The visual impressions made on a child's tender heart last a lifetime. Before I get into how to help children feel the magic, I have a really sad story to tell you. The Snow Queen has struck the art world. If you go to modern art exhibits and find yourself scratching your head, you're not alone. What if I said this to you? Lavishly zazix, the photograph perpendicular. Did you get anything out of that? Why, each of those words means something to me, but I wanted to express them to you in my own way, so I threw out all the rules of grammar. In fact, I thought a couple of the words sounded better backwards. This is what happened in the art world. 100 years ago, they threw out all the rules. Just as had happened in music, by the mid-1800s, artists had discovered the greatest secrets and rules of art that made it possible to communicate profound messages to human hearts instantly. You can take a work of art like the first image in the slideshow and show it to anyone, anywhere in the world, no matter what culture, no matter when they lived in history, and their hearts will instantly understand what this painting is saying. The intellectuals of the early 1900s looked down on that kind of art as sentimental and unsophisticated. They despised storytelling in art. As a result, this whole body of art from 1848 to 1920 was completely erased from all the university textbooks and from all the courses of art history in our schools. Museums put many of the paintings in storage. Then a few years ago, a Fred Ross, who holds a Master's of Art Education from Columbia University, tells us that he stumbled upon a work of art by Bouguereau that moved him like no other work of art ever had. The second painting in the slideshow is by the same artist. The art transfixed him. He couldn't pull himself away from it. Why had he never heard of this artist in all his studies? It led him on a search where he discovered these things that I'm telling you. He's been working hard to restore what has been lost. If you go to artrenewal.org, you'll find the Art Renewal Center, which is a treasure trove of fine art. There are over 80,000 high-resolution images primarily made up of this forgotten art. Look up his article on why classical realism matters and read it. It's eye-opening and may just change the way you think about art. And a lot of things about what's happening in the art world will make a lot more sense. Without this art, I don't think we could work the magic with our children that I'm about to describe. One thing I need to mention, on the site it says the artwork is for online viewing only, but I wrote to them and asked if mothers can print out the art for use in their homes with their children, and permission is given for that. I encourage you to express your gratitude to them for what they're doing and how it's blessing your homes, and do show your support by becoming a member. For students, it's only $16.95 a year and will give you full access to everything on the site. I've printed out many images of their art at Staples, and they come out beautifully, and it won't break the bank to do it. Just the other day, I paid 21 cents a page with a 50% off coupon, and the quantity was unlimited. I'm sure other copy shops offer discounts like that too if you keep watching. The other thing I want to mention is that I've gone through the entire gallery of art, all 80,000 images, specifically looking for art that corresponds with the developmental ages of your children that I've been describing, and organizing it so that you have a quick starting place. I've posted them all on Pinterest pages so you'll be able to quickly scan through the images to find what you want. At the Art Renewal Center, you can only look up art by artist, title, or medium. I've selected and organized it according to art about families and children for little children in the familiar years, art from Shakespeare, mythology, and fairy tales for the imaginative years, and then by country for your children who are studying history and people. You can access it by going to the drop-down menu under Well-Educated Heart or through the Images section on the resource page. Before we go on, let me say a word about nudity, because you're going to run into a lot of it in art and at the Art Renewal Center. I know different people have different opinions on this subject when it comes to children. Because I know it's a sensitive subject, none of the artwork I've selected have nudes in them. For parents who would prefer to not have their young children view nudes, they can turn them loose in the galleries I've created and not worry. Having said that, let me share some thoughts on the subject. I'm very modest by nature. Remember, I was the one with the pale pink graduation dress, and these ideas I've run across have been helpful to me. The human body is God's most perfect and beautiful creation. It's not He who suggests the human body is vulgar or crude in any way. God placed Adam and Eve naked in the garden, and it was good. Michelangelo wrote, "What spirit is so empty and blind that it cannot recognize the fact that the foot is more noble than the shoe, and the skin more beautiful than the garment with which it is clothed?" The impression I would want to make on my young children is the feeling that the body is nothing to be ashamed of. There's a story attributed to Muhammad Ali that can be used to teach this important lesson. One day his grown daughters paid him a visit dressed in some very immodest clothes. His daughter said he sat her down, looked straight in her eyes, and said, "Hannah, everything that God made valuable in the world is covered and hard to get to. Where do you find diamonds? Deep down in the ground, covered and protected. Where do you find pearls? Deep down at the bottom of the ocean, covered up and protected in a beautiful shell. Where do you find gold? Way down and in the mine, covered with layers and layers of rocks. You've got to work hard to get them. Your body is sacred. You're far more precious than diamonds and pearls, and you should be covered too. I would then add that the most precious parts of our bodies are the parts that can create new babies and can feed them when they're newly born. Those are the parts we keep covered and protected. Sometimes artists paint those parts of our body not because they're naughty or nasty, but because they're very beautiful, and true artists love beautiful things. So sometimes when you see bodies without clothes in beautiful paintings, you don't have to be embarrassed. It's okay to look at them. Or you can take a black marker to your paintings. Some experts say it's looking at forbidden fruit that intensifies the pornography addictions. I'm not an expert in such things, but it would seem making a proper impression on a young heart can avert problems down the road. For help in protecting your family from pornography issues, I highly recommend going to womenfordecency.org. And now I'll describe steps you can take to help your children love fine art. As John Van Dyke said, it will take years before you come to a full appreciation of art, but when at last you have it, you will be possessed of one of the purest, loftiest, and most ennobling pleasures that the civilized world can offer you. If music is the first language a baby recognizes, art is the second. Children love looking at pictures. That's why we create so many picture books for them. But somewhere along the way, we mistakenly, I believe, decided that cartoon images that have nothing to do with real life are better for children to look at. Yet babies prefer real things. They love to watch facial expressions at very young ages, like you can see in picture 3. And babies imitate what they see. What are we giving them to imitate? I suggest creating picture books from fine art images. You can print out 8 by 11 images and put them in plastic sheet protectors in notebooks and sit down together to look at them, or reduce them to half or quarter size, laminate them and coil bind them, or just leave them as separate pictures to be looked at one at a time. Post them on refrigerators or other places that are eye level to your children. For the familiar age, start with pictures of mommies and daddies, babies, kittens and puppies, pictures of home and families. Even if your children are older, I'd start art studies with paintings of home and family. Let me show you some examples. Do you feel differently looking at these little kittens in picture 4 than while looking at Hello Kitty? So do your children. You feel like you can reach out and pet these little soft little balls of fur. Not so much with Hello Kitty. For little ones, you can create a small book of pictures of children playing lovingly with pets as one of your picture books, like those found in pictures 5 and in picture 6. And look at the difference between showing this mother deer with the baby as opposed to images of Disney's Bambi and his mother in picture 7. As I scanned through tens of thousands of images in the Art Renewal Library, I was astonished how often I bumped into Mother. Although sometimes she is barefoot, as in picture 8, she is definitely not repressed, miserable, or trapped. She is content, as in pictures 9 and 10, and happy, as in pictures 11 and 12. She is beautiful, as in picture 13. The value of motherhood is so downplayed in a world today, yet who is closer to the hearts of children than mothers? Therefore, who else has more influence on what the world will look like tomorrow? Like Helen Hunt Jackson said, "Oh, if the world could only stop long enough for one generation of mothers to be all right, what a millennium could be begun in 30 years. Changing attitudes towards motherhood starts with impressions made on little hearts. Show them images of these mothers smiling and playing with their children. Let them see the look of love on their face. Who is creating art like this anymore? We've also devalued the role of father as protector and provider. As someone else said, in the last 50 years, we've gone from father knows best to father knows nothing to who needs a father. As I scanned through the fine art images, I also kept bumping into father. He's strong, as in picture 14. He's helping out with the kids, as in picture 15. He works hard and provides for his family, as in picture 16. And he's as happy to see them as they are to see him, as in picture 17. I also found sisters with their arms around each other, as in picture 18. Families just enjoying each other's company, as in pictures 19 and 20. I found children playing together, as in picture 21, in imaginative play, and out in nature, as in picture 22. Whether playing or working together, family members were happy, as in picture 23. Place a bulletin board by your child's bed and let these be the kind of images they see just before they fall asleep at night and the first thing in the morning when they wake up. Let them see families with mothers and fathers, as in picture 24. The traditional family of mother and father married with children is becoming rarer and rarer, and so are the images that depict traditional families. What message are we sending our little children? I included a section called Romance because I think we're not giving our children images of innocent and pure love between a man and a woman, as in picture 25. Everything today is sex and lust. This is my little campaign to counter that. You'll also find a section devoted to reading, as well as one all about music, and I just couldn't resist adding a section for beautiful flowers and gardens. Find creative ways to use these pictures and make them part of your children's everyday life. As your child starts using words, you can start adding stories to start making the images move and come to life. For example, here's a little story that can be used with von Bremmen's The Pet Bird, shown in picture 26. Look how much fun these children are having. I wonder what's going on. Oh, look, a tiny little bird. It must be a pet. How they all love it. See the oldest boy hold up his finger for the little bird to stand upon? Can you not almost see the bird peck at the piece of bread the little boy is holding in his left hand? The girl behind him is leaning her head on the older boy's shoulder. These children love each other. They're a happy little family, aren't they? The littlest brother has climbed up on the cushioned chair just so he could be closer. Look, he's holding out his finger very steadily and quiet, and maybe he's saying, "Let the bird come and sit on my finger." The little bird isn't afraid. He knows these children won't hurt him. The other little girl has stopped reading so she can watch the bird she loves. Now you can stop here, or you can go on and tell a little about the artist who painted the painting. These are 4 little children who lived in Germany. The man who painted this pretty picture loved children. Almost all his pictures are of children, so that in Germany he has been called Kindermeyer, but his real name was Johann Georg Meyer von Bremen. He liked to play games with children. They liked to play blind man's bluff best, and once he painted them playing this game. At one time, so many people wanted his pictures that he couldn't paint fast enough. He has been called the children's painter. When he was a little boy, he always was drawing tiny little pictures. When he grew up, he went to an art school. He had a motto that hung on the wall of his room. It said, "Make the best of your time. It never returns." And he always followed its teachings. A lot of his paintings are here in America. Maybe sometime we'll get to go to the museum and look for them. The story can be that simple, but it gets the images moving. In our Stories of Paintings in the Story Hour series, I gathered together a number of paintings with stories to go with them, similar to this one, that are appropriate for little children. You can read them, but it will be so much more effective if you could just tell it using the ideas I've included. I just do it maybe once a week and then put that particular painting up on the fridge or somewhere conspicuous and then put it away in a notebook when you're ready to introduce a new painting. The images in the book are black and white and not very clear, but I've included them so that when you search for a color image online, you'll know you found the right one. The stories in the online library in connection to the stories of painting have little children in mind. They're mostly stories of little children and animals. Now, every picture doesn't need a story with it. As you get the images moving through a few stories, your children will start doing it for themselves. As you move into the imaginative years, start introducing fine art depicting the fairy tales, as in picture 27, or mythology in picture 28 of Orpheus who rescued Eurydice from the underworld, or picture 29 of Persephone returning to her mother. Add fine art to illustrate classic literature you may be reading, such as picture 30's Knights in Shining Armor, or the scene from Merchant of Venice in picture 31. I've broken them down by those categories so you can easily find them. We're also gathering the beautiful color illustrations in some of these old books that we're reprinting for your use, and I'll announce when they're ready in our Facebook group. Now you want to start engaging in activities where they pay particular attention to details. One idea is to play a memory game where the picture is studied for a few minutes and then taken away. If you play it with one child, let him see how many details he can remember. If you have several children, see who remembers the most. Make a contest of it. A variation of that is to have them study the painting and then try to sketch it from memory. It's not meant to be a likeness at all, but will start giving them an idea of layout and design as they map out the major parts of the painting. Keep it simple to begin with. The objective is to have them start paying attention to details. You often see sketchers in great art galleries because they understand you best learn by first turning to the masters. As they sketch what they see, they're internalizing principles of design and the rules of art in the process. It's the whole apple of learning art, much like your kids will be doing. Don't force it. Never let it feel like a chore. These are occasional activities. Most of the time, just let them look at the pictures. I haven't used them, but I've been told there are jigsaw puzzle programs online where you can take a fine art image and turn it into a digital jigsaw puzzle, which will also help your children pay attention to details as they're putting the paintings back together again. By age 8, when you start studying the history of nations and lives of great people, you can take their appreciation of art to the next level. Start telling them the stories of the great artists and introduce the masterpieces connected to them. Our Stories of Great Artists in the Great Lives series will give you some great high-interest stories to start with. As they want to learn more, you'll find many more biographies in the Great Artists online library, as well as in the Nature, Art, and Music series under Stories of Art and Music History. As they start to learn the stories of history, I've grouped fine art selections by country to bring the events and people to life, such as these scenes from Roman life in pictures 32 and 33. Don't you feel like you're there? You can print these out to use as illustrations for the history notebooks I'll be describing in a later talk. They really make history real and add emotion to what they're studying. Picture 34 is of an enlisted soldier painted in 1885. Any mother, daughter, sister, friend, or wife who has sent a soldier to war knows exactly what this painting is saying. While textbooks may give hard statistics of casualties, art like this makes it real. When this painting was hung in a gallery, one of the foremost art critics of the day, who was used to viewing art through an analytical and critical eye, broke down and wept. You'll also find paintings of cities and landscapes in various countries, such as the scene of a Dutch town in picture 35. Keep in mind, many of them were painted 200 or 300 years ago, so we're getting a unique perspective of what life really looked like back then. As children start to learn the stories of the nations, you can now incorporate the history of art into the rotation. Stories of Art and Music History in the Nature, Art, and Music series will give you some great stories to start with, then find more in the online library. As they start to learn about the great artists, they're going to be introduced to the great era of religious art. Hundreds of years ago, before the common man had books and while sermons were preached in Latin, it was the art that taught the spirit of religion to the people. The paintings were full of symbolism, and as you teach children that symbolism, which they are now old enough to appreciate, it will be like fun detective work to make sense of the paintings. Also, by this age, they are hopefully familiar with many Bible stories, which they'll now recognize in the art. You'll find some great books to help you learn and teach the symbolism in the Stories of Art and Music History online library. You'll also find a book there that teaches the symbolism used in mythological paintings. And now it's time to start teaching the rules that created the magic. The second half of the Stories of Painting book I mentioned earlier with Stories for Little Children has a wonderful introductory book to help you explain media, color, perspective, technique, and so forth. Again, the images in the book are just suggestive. I don't expect you to use those ones with your children. You'll be able to find color images of almost all of them if you Google them. Take it slow. If your children aren't interested in the rules yet, come back later. But I'm betting you'll enjoy it, and it will give you more ways of talking paintings with your children. As your older children start understanding these principles, it will be enjoyable for them to go back to the paintings they already love and see how the artist applied the secrets they're now learning about. As your children come to appreciate how art makes them feel, they'll have a greater appreciation for a study of architecture, which can also be incorporated in your history rotation study. I found some great introductory books on the subject that are listed in the Stories of Art and Music History online library. I'll be adding more books to that list as I come across them. Just another side note, as I said, I can find color images online of most of the paintings talked about in these old books, but sometimes I can't. And it wasn't until I saw the movie Monuments Men that I realized some of these paintings may have been among those that were destroyed by Hitler in Nazi Germany, which makes the knowledge of them even more valuable. By the way, if you haven't seen that movie yet, I highly recommend it. The movie itself isn't perfect, but its message is powerful. As your family grows in their love of fine art, make sure your walls reflect that love. It's time to get rid of the paintings you bought just because they match the couch and replace them with paintings that will speak to the hearts of your children every single day. I didn't think much about the influence of what's hanging on my walls until one day one of my daughters came home from a friend's house and was so excited about their new basement. She said it was unbelievably cool. They had posters from old movies and movie stars all over the wall, and she said, "How come we can't have a cool house like that?" I need to interject here that I happen to love religious art, and many of the rooms in our home have a scene from Jesus' life in it. She went on to say, "How can my friends talk about and do the things we like to do if Jesus is looking at us?" Oh, she didn't have to say anything else. Neither did I. The painting stayed. It's telling that many families don't think twice about spending $500 or even $2,000 apiece for multiple flat-screen TVs that will soon end up in the landfill. Yet spending $300 for a painting that has the power to influence a life for good seems extravagant. Today we can get reproductions of almost any work of fine art to hang on our walls at prices that won't break the bank. What if you started a yearly tradition, maybe at Christmas time, where you let the gift givers in your life know that you want to buy a new painting for your wall? Make it a family affair during the year to settle in on which one to buy. Decide where it will hang. Art Renewal Center offers reproductions of most of their fine art that you can buy. Price varies according to size and texture. It truly makes it possible to make your home an art gallery that instantly communicates truths to your children's hearts every single day. I will also mention that I've picked up some beautiful volumes of art at the library book sales. When I pay 50 cents a piece for them, I don't feel so bad having the art cut out of them to be pasted in notebooks and such. You might want to keep a lookout for them. And now a word on expressing art. First impression, then expression. I think many of us, if not most of us, think we can't draw, but it's not true. Drawing is a skill that can be learned by anyone, just like handwriting. John Ruskin, who I mentioned in the introductory talk, suggested it takes about an hour a day for 6 months to give you sufficient power of drawing faithfully whatever you want to draw. You can't draw something without really looking at it, and so it increases our capacity to see. The first drawing lessons are best learned in nature, and so I'll be talking about it in a little more detail in the nature talk. Not everyone who draws will go on to become a great artist, but everyone who draws will add depth and richness to their lives. The true artist has skills, but he also has an uncommonly well-educated heart. From my notes, he is not an artist who merely puts on canvas that which any man can see with his own eye. The true artist reveals truths to our souls. The great technical secrets and skills possessed by the master artists were almost lost in this last century, but part of the mission of the Art Renewal Center is to make sure they live on in a new generation of artists. I just noticed they are developing a K-12 skills-based program that can be adapted for use by homeschoolers. Watch their site for its release. If you have the heart of an artist in your home, you may want to check out the schools and workshops listed on their site. As I've spoken with artists and asked for their recommendations for training, even those who have been university trained have told me to avoid the universities. They suggest it is better to apprentice with other artists or to attend workshops. But above all, they say, study the masters. A discussion on art wouldn't be complete without mention of the key ingredient for success, inspiration. A while ago, I ran across the story of a woman who shows us what God can do with a willing heart, even if our skills are less than adequate. If you haven't heard of Angela Johnson, I encourage you to search out her work and story on the internet. You'll find YouTubes of her describing her experience in our YouTube section in resources. She was an opera singer who one day had this overpowering urge to go down to the hobby store and pick up some clay and teach herself to sculpt. It wasn't long until, if you go to the final slide, she created this masterpiece in just 5.5 weeks. The world desperately needs a new generation of artists who can inspire and lift us and help us see the beautiful in all things. A love of beauty will transform our world. Consider the message of Sleeping Beauty as told in Walt Disney's film adaptation. In the story, Beauty had gone to sleep, and when she fell asleep, the entire kingdom became lifeless and colorless. Soon noxious briars and thorns and tangled vines grew around the sleeping kingdom. Prince Philip valiantly drew his sword of truth and protected himself with his shield of righteousness to make his way through the tangled mess and fight the evil Maleficent. But that isn't what brought the kingdom back to life. The thing that brought the kingdom back to life was his love of beauty. When Beauty received true love's first kiss, Beauty awoke, and the kingdom gloriously sprang to life. With that, I'll leave you with my final thought for this talk, courtesy of Charles Kingsley. Never lose an opportunity to see anything beautiful. Beauty is God's handwriting.